My name's Ian, I'm 42, and for most of my life, I've been the guy who shows up. The uncle who remembers every birthday. The one who wires the emergency money, answers the 2 a.m. calls, and mails surprise care packages just because. I never thought much of it. I've done pretty well for myself, and helping family felt like the right thing to do. Or at least it used to. These days, I look back and wonder when the line between support and being used got so thoroughly erased. I don't have kids of my own, which in this family makes me the available one. The bachelor uncle with no obligations, no excuses, and, as my sister once put it, no real priorities. Her words, not mine. Katie, my older sister by 2 years, has always been the center of our family's orbit. The loudest laugh at the table, the first to start a group chat, the unofficial planner of every holiday dinner. She also married Craig, who has had more jobs in the past decade than I can remember. Not because he's ambitious, but because he never holds on to one for long. Their son, Daniel, my 14-year-old nephew, used to be this shy, sweet kid who'd draw me pictures when I visited and hug me like he meant it. Somewhere between 12 and 14, though, that shifted. The warmth cooled. The hug stopped. Now it's all sarcastic comments, eye rolls, and a casual cruelty that makes me wonder what exactly is being said about me when I'm not around. I hadn't planned on attending this year's family dinner. I was tired, burnt out. Work had been a mess, and to be honest, I was starting to feel like I was the only one trying to hold anything together. But Katie insisted. "Daniel really misses you," she said over the phone. "He's been asking about you nonstop." That tugged at something. Maybe I was imagining the distance, or maybe I'd just been too caught up in my own head. So I packed up, bought Daniel the gaming laptop he'd been hinting at for months, and drove the 4 hours to their place. The dinner was set up like something out of a catalog. Katie had gone all out. Twinkling lights on the patio, a centerpiece of autumn leaves and cinnamon-scented candles, and way too much food for a family of 6. Her in-laws were there, along with Craig's cousin and her kids, making it loud and crowded. I arrived right on time, laptop gift-wrapped under my arm, and was greeted with the usual chorus of, "Ian, you made it," as if I'd flown in from another planet instead of making a routine drive like I always did. It wasn't until about halfway through the meal, just as Katie was serving dessert and Daniel was unwrapping the gift I'd brought, that it happened. He tore off the paper with an exaggerated yawn, like he was doing me a favor. The table leaned in, waiting to see what was inside. His eyes lit up for a second when he saw the box, high-end, sleek, exactly the model he wanted, but then that light faded into a smirk. He held up the laptop and turned to me. "Thanks, I guess," he said with a shrug. "Mom said you'd get it. She said you're basically just a pathetic wallet who thinks money buys love." A few people laughed. I mean, they actually laughed. His dad, his aunt. Even Katie gave one of those snort giggles that people do when they don't want to look too guilty. No one said, "Hey, that's not okay." No one said anything at all. The sound of that laughter, light, careless, cruel, cut deeper than I expected. I just sat there, blinking. For a second, I actually wondered if I had misheard him. But the smirk on Daniel's face told me I hadn't. I didn't say a word. I didn't make a scene or demand an apology. I just smiled, reached for my glass of water, took a slow sip, and pulled my phone from my pocket. 5 taps. That's all it took. One to cancel the streaming subscriptions I'd been paying for. One to revoke access to the shared family phone plan. One to disable the monthly rent auto payment I'd been covering ever since Craig lost his last job. One to unenroll Daniel from the pricey online tutoring platform I'd been footing the bill for. And the last one, the tuition installment for the private school he just got into. It hadn't gone through yet. Now, it wouldn't. Still, I didn't say a word. Not yet. I finished my water, placed the empty glass down gently, and stood. "Everything okay?" Katie asked, still half laughing, oblivious. "Yeah," I said, picking up my jacket. "I've just got to take care of a few things." "Oh, don't be dramatic," she rolled her eyes. "Daniel's just being a teenager." "That's exactly what I'm doing," I said. "Taking care of things." And I left. Quietly. No slammed doors. No final declarations. Just me, walking out into the cool evening air and letting the door close behind me. I didn't go home right away. I checked into a nearby hotel, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall for a good hour. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was just done. Done with the transactional love. Done being treated like a human ATM. Done trying to earn a place in a family that had already assigned me a role and stripped it of all dignity. The next morning, I returned briefly, not to speak, not to argue, but to drop off something I'd been holding on to for a long time. A small wooden box. Nothing fancy, just something I'd carved years ago during a brief stint in woodworking. Inside, there was a folded letter, a few snapshots, and one very specific thing they weren't expecting. I left it on the kitchen counter while the house was still quiet. No one saw me come in, and no one saw me go. They found it later that afternoon. The letter inside the box was handwritten. Not typed, not scrawled in anger. Just clean, steady penmanship on thick cream-colored paper, the kind I used to use when I wrote holiday cards before they all started tossing them unopened into a pile for later. It began with a single sentence, inked in a darker tone than the rest, underlined once. "This is everything you never bothered to ask." From there, the letter unfolded like a quiet avalanche. I started with Daniel. I reminded him of the time I spent 3 hours on a freezing December evening, waiting outside his school concert because no one else had time to show up, and how he cried when he saw me in the front row. I reminded him of the robot building kit he once begged for on his 10th birthday, and how I skipped out on a company bonus trip to afford it. I told him how proud I'd been when he used it to win his middle school science fair. I reminded him of the hours we spent together, side by side on the floor, building Lego cities while he told me his dreams of becoming an engineer. Then I shifted to Katie. I laid it all out, quietly and factually, like a ledger. Every rent payment since Craig's third job loss, 78 total. The car insurance for both their vehicles. The $3,200 loan when they were short on the down payment for their current house. The emergency dental procedure when Craig cracked his molar but refused to get insurance. The groceries during COVID. The birthday parties. The field trips. The school applications. The clothes. The emergencies that never stopped being emergencies. But most importantly, I pointed out the things that couldn't be itemized. The phone calls I answered when no one else picked up. The nights I stayed on the line with her while she cried in the garage, saying she felt trapped. The time I drove 3 hours in a thunderstorm just because she didn't want to be alone when Craig stormed out. The times I kept secrets. Took the blame. Bit my tongue. At the bottom of the letter, I added a single postscript. You didn't lose me because of a laptop. You lost me because you turned love into a receipt, and then mocked the one person still paying. The snapshots were of the three of us, me, Katie, and Daniel from years ago. A camping trip. A birthday party at a bowling alley. A random Saturday with ice cream on our faces and sunburns on our cheeks. Back when things weren't perfect, but they were honest. I had kept them in a drawer for years. Now, they were theirs to keep or ignore. And beneath those photos, there was one final thing. A check. Made out to myself. Canceled. Torn cleanly down the middle and taped back together, visible, deliberate. Written across the memo line in capital letters was the word, enough. I heard from my neighbor, who was friends with Katie, that she found the box first. That she read the letter in full while everyone else was still lounging around, complaining about leftovers. That she didn't speak for a long time afterward, just stared at the box in silence like it had sucked all the oxygen from the room. Apparently, she showed Craig first. He scoffed, muttered something about me, always being dramatic, and went back to watching football. But Katie didn't. She kept reading the letter. Again and again. Daniel found it last. He opened it thinking maybe there was another gift inside. When he saw the torn check, he reportedly asked, "Wait, what does this mean?" No one answered him. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. Once. A text from Katie. "I didn't know it was this bad. I'm sorry. Please talk to me." I stared at that message for a long time. The kind of long where the screen dims and locks itself before you realize your thumb hasn't moved. But I didn't reply. I didn't block her. I didn't scream at her. I didn't write back some monologue of hurt or forgiveness. I just sat with it. Because that silence, that space between the click of a sent message and the nothing that follows, that's where they lived for years. And now they could stay there a while. I moved into a quiet rental about 45 minutes from my old place, close enough to work, far enough from family. I didn't tell anyone the address. Changed my number. Got a new email. Started small. Got back into woodworking. Met a few neighbors. Started sleeping through the night without keeping my phone at arm's reach, just in case. Then came the next message. "Please. Daniel's been asking where you are. He's not okay." I didn't answer her second message either. For a week, nothing followed. Then the third one came. Longer, more frantic. I told him what I said. I told him what I let him say. I was wrong. I don't know how to undo it. He hasn't touched the laptop. He hasn't come out of his room. Please, Ian. He doesn't hate you. It cut off there. I let that one sit too. See, I wasn't trying to punish a kid. I know Daniel's still young, still under the influence of the people around him. But that night, when he said those words, not just said them, but smirked and delivered them like a punchline at my expense, I saw the future. I saw the next 15 years. A grown man who never respected the hands that fed him because he was raised to believe those hands owed him everything. I wasn't going to help raise that man. That's when I started writing my second letter. Not to Katie this time. To Daniel. It took days. I'd write a few lines, walk away, come back and scratch half of them out. I didn't want to sound bitter. I didn't want to lash out. I wanted him to understand. Not just what he said, but what it meant. What it cost. When I finally sent it, through regular mail, no signature required. It was 8 pages long. Handwritten again. I had attached a small photo at the end, one I hadn't given them before. It was from the day I surprised him with tickets to that robotics convention 3 years ago. The one he told everyone was the best weekend of his life. He was holding the prototype he'd built, beaming, arms raised like he'd just won gold. And next to him, I was smiling, not for the camera, but for him. In the letter, I told him the story of how I had to sell an old collector's watch to afford that trip. It wasn't meant to guilt him. I didn't even think he remembered the watch. But I wanted him to know that love, real love, often hides in the details we never mention. The canceled trips, the skipped upgrades, the silent sacrifices made not for praise, but because someone wants you to shine, even if they have to stand in your shadow while you do. I ended it with a sentence I'd read once in a book and never forgot. When you mock the hand that feeds you, don't be surprised when it closes. That letter arrived on a Tuesday. I know because Wednesday morning, my new phone, which only a handful of people had the number to, lit up with a call from a strange area code. I almost didn't answer. It was Katie. Her voice cracked before she even said hello. I didn't give him your number. I swear, she said, rushing. He found the return address from the envelope. He asked me to call. Said he didn't want to text. He wants to talk. I didn't say anything. He said he's sorry, she whispered. I was still silent. Not out of anger. I was just waiting. Feeling. Katie continued. He's not asking for anything. He said to tell you he never realized how much you were doing. That we never made space for you. Only what you could give. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped. I was wrong, Ian. I really thought we were a family. But we weren't. We were just taking. And for the first time in months, I let myself breathe deep. I didn't rush to forgive. I didn't offer to come over. I didn't unlock any accounts or restart payments. But I did say one thing. Tell him I'll call him Sunday. That night, I went out to my small backyard, just a patch of grass and a cracked wooden chair I'd sanded down last week, and watched the sun fall behind the trees. It was quiet. No buzz of texts. No unread emails from family threads. Just me, the hum of crickets, and a strange feeling I hadn't known I was missing. Peace. But that peace didn't last long. Because 2 days later, a letter showed up at my door. No return address. No name. Inside, a note. You've made your point. Now undo the damage. Before we do. And that changed everything. I stared at that note for a long time. The handwriting was clipped, rushed, but familiar. No name, no threat spelled out. But the tone? The tone was venom with a velvet glove. There was only one person I knew who could write like that, Craig. I held the paper between my fingers, half expecting it to combust from the heat rolling off my skin. So that's how it was going to be. No apology. No accountability. Just a mask slipping for one brief second, and beneath it, the man who'd been quietly pulling strings in the background for years, getting what he wanted while smiling for the camera. I didn't call Daniel that Sunday. Instead, I called my lawyer Monday morning. I'll be honest. For a few days, I second-guessed everything. Was I overreacting? Was I really going to go this far over a few cruel words and years of neglect? But that letter, no, that warning was a pivot. A declaration that said, we've taken from you for this long, and we'll keep taking until you're dry. And if you try to stop us, we'll play victim. So I got methodical. First, I contacted every single subscription, account, or joint service I had ever signed up for in their names. Some of them dated back nearly a decade. Old streaming platforms. A second car lease I'd foolishly co-signed. Even the emergency-only credit card Craig had begged me to open, just in case the kids ever need anything. I called the bank next. Flagged everything. Froze the secondary card. Closed the linked accounts. Not a trace of my name remained in their financial ecosystem. Then I reached out to Daniel's school. I informed them that I would no longer be responsible for tuition and that all future invoices should go directly to the primary guardians. The woman on the phone paused, then said softly, "We've actually been meaning to contact you. There's an outstanding balance." Of course there was. Apparently, Craig had ignored multiple payment reminders. He'd been assuming correctly up until now that I'd cover the gap last minute, like always. I didn't. Next, I went through my files. There was an old document I'd kept years ago when Katie and I had a fleeting discussion about me becoming Daniel's legal guardian if anything ever happened to her and Craig. It was never finalized, just drafted, but I still had it. I scanned it, scribbled across the top in red ink, rescinded. Indefinitely. I attached a fresh letter to go with it, explaining that my financial, legal, and emotional ties to that household were dissolved, effective immediately. No room for misinterpretation. I sent a final package to their address. Not to start a fight, just to end one. Inside was a typed letter, impersonal and cold by design, detailing every canceled account, every deactivated card, every legal step taken. I included receipts, termination confirmations, and a notarized statement that I would not be responsible for any debts moving forward. At the bottom, one final note, handwritten, "You raised a boy who laughed at love and married a man who used it. Neither of you will use mine again." I sealed it. No return address this time. I didn't hear from them for nearly a week. Then the phone calls began. First it was Katie, crying, then begging, then angry. "You've made your point, Ian. This is cruel. You're punishing a child." I let her rant. I didn't say a word. She left voicemails. Long, winding, guilt-drenched monologues laced with phrases like "family doesn't keep score" and "you know Daniel looked up to you." I didn't respond. Every time I listened to one, I thought of her laughing around that table, watching her son reduce me to a bank account with legs and doing nothing. Then Craig tried. One message. Short and smug. "Nice move. But don't forget, you were the one who insisted on being part of our lives. You don't just get to ghost your responsibilities now. If we go down, you go with us." And that's when I decided I was done being silent. I sent Craig a reply. Just once. "You're right. I did insist on being part of your lives. And now I'm insisting on being out of it. Completely. If you contact me again, directly or through anyone else, I'll have legal grounds for harassment. Don't test me." He didn't reply. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. This time from Daniel. His handwriting was messier than before, like he'd rewritten it several times. It was the kind of letter that read like a kid trying to sound older than he is. Formal words. Forced sincerity. But between the lines, there was something real. He admitted he didn't fully understand what he was saying at dinner, that he'd been parroting things he heard, that when he unwrapped the laptop and said what he said, he expected laughs, not damage, not silence. He didn't ask for money. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He just wrote this. "I don't know if you'll ever talk to me again, but I wanted you to know that I get it now. You weren't trying to buy love. You were giving it in the only way you knew how. And I didn't deserve it." I read that letter 5 times. And on the 6th, I cried. Not because it changed anything. Not because it made it okay. But because, for the first time in what felt like years, someone in that family actually saw me. I didn't call him. Not yet. I needed space. But I did send back one thing. A photo of that same robotics convention with a sticky note on the back. "Love is more than gifts. But I gave them because I believed in you. If you ever want to earn that back, not the gifts, but the belief, I'll be here." One day. I left it at that. A year passed. Katie and I didn't speak. Craig, to my knowledge, finally got a job and promptly lost it again. They moved to a smaller apartment. Daniel transferred schools. I stayed quiet. Rebuilt my world. Filled it with people who didn't see me as a wallet, but as a whole person. I got back into volunteering. Started mentoring a few teens in the local community center, kids who reminded me of Daniel before the bitterness crept in. And one afternoon, a familiar face showed up. Daniel. A little taller. Hair longer. No laptop in sight. Just him, nervously walking into the center with a robotics kit tucked under his arm. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said. I want to build again." So I pulled out a chair, sat down across from him, and nodded. "Let's start from scratch." And we did. That was the first day I stopped feeling used and started feeling something else entirely. Free.